Welcome to Plant Medicine Transmissions with Javier Regueiro. In this episode of Plant Medicine Transmissions, I would like to conclude this series of podcasts about letting go. And the last theme that seems important to me is the aspect of learning. I do believe that healing is indeed available to all of us, even though oftentimes it feels like a never-ending story. And the completion of that healing process, as far as I'm concerned, is the learning aspect of this process, is learning, remembering the important lessons. And those lessons are always beautiful. That healing process, the wounding, is truly an opportunity for remembrance. As part of that remembering process, the first thing is awareness. Awareness of how we function, of our own predicament and patterns. That aspect is most important. It's a first step, but it's not the whole thing. Meaning that this process, healing, is not just a mental exercise. Plant medicines are wonderful in that they are a much more well-rounded experience that involve not just our heads, but also our emotions, our hearts, our spirits. So I believe that those wounds that we carry inside are simply unintegrated aspects of ourselves. Aspects of ourselves that keep us separate, not only from others and from the world, but also keep us separate from our very own selves, that keep us separate from our own wisdom, from our own essence. Oftentimes, I perceive these wounds as lies that we keep telling ourselves despite our best intentions. And this process of healing, by embracing those aspects of ourselves that we have rejected or abandoned, are the vehicle for us to remember our own truths. As we let go of old beliefs and old predicaments, there is a space within us that is created from which deeper understanding and more expanded viewpoints can be finally embraced, and they become part of our lives. Often people complain about the fact that the initial elation, expansion that one experiences during and right after a ceremony or retreat do not last. First of all, I would say nothing really lasts forever on this planet. This is a work in progress as far as I'm concerned. And the lessons that we come here to remember are multi-layered, meaning that there are many aspects
of that journey that is important to actually integrate and heal. Experiencing, for instance, the sacredness of all life during a ceremonial retreat is in itself a wonderful thing. However, that awareness for us to be able to gently hold that awareness and live our lives accordingly, that may take a little bit more time. There may be aspects of our own consciousness that probably need some more exploration. So the weeks and months following a ceremonial retreat are most important in that real life shows us what work, what exploration still is needed. First of all, it's important to know that these are peak experiences, and therefore they are not meant to last with the same intensity. Eventually, everything subsides gently, and at that point, it's important to pay attention and to see in our own daily lives those aspects that resurface that have not been completely integrated. The second aspect is the aspect of integration. It takes a little bit more time and effort or mindfulness to actually apply these insights in our very own lives. For instance, a friend and client of mine has been drinking ayahuasca in the last few years with a certain regularity. And she came to ayahuasca to ask a very specific question about her life. And talking about it, she shared that actually in every following ceremony, the medicine was telling her the same thing, to actually become a little bit more proactive in her life and sharing a little bit more generously her wisdom with others and the world. When she told me this, I recommended that she actually stops drinking ayahuasca, that she stops until she puts into action those insights that she has received. The process with plant medicine is an interesting one and at times a tricky one. We perceive these insights as coming from the medicine. However, I do believe that those insights that we may perceive as coming from the medicine, from outside ourselves, are actually coming from inside ourselves. It is really through this process that our own wisdom is revealed to ourselves, through a dramatic device in which we perceive it as coming from outside ourselves. So these insights are an expression of our own wisdom, and it is important to honor that wisdom and to actually put it into action. To know for knowing's sake isn't really of much benefit to anyone. It is said here in the Andes that wisdom without the courage to apply that wisdom isn't worth anything. There is an aspect of practicality, of actually bringing, so to speak, heaven down here on earth. So if we stay just on the mental level, on the awareness level, that isn't really the full journey. The reality is that we all know the theory already. We've all read the right books. We've all been exposed to viewpoints that are very profound and very expanded. The challenge is to actually put those lessons into practice. And in order to put those lessons into practice, we find ourselves struggling with old beliefs about our own ability to apply those lessons in our daily lives. So I was speaking about purging in a previous episode, and I don't recommend actually forcing the purging. I don't recommend trying to pull out heavy energies out of our being during a ceremony, because first of all, there is an aspect of resistance, wanting to get rid of anything. I found personally that purging, as well as that final letting go of an old story, actually comes totally effortlessly when we are ready to do so. And for me, that readiness comes when we have finally remembered those important lessons that our own wounds were meant to teach us to begin with. When we do remember those lessons, then we can look back at those painful stories simply with utmost gratitude. And that for me is a sign of true letting go, rather than trying to get rid of anything. The only way that I found to integrate, to heal those old stories is by actually going through them, through and through. And at times there are aspects of those stories that are not still fully healed, fully integrated. So it's important to stay gently aware and then go back into that story and continue our own exploration. These lessons, this awareness, this expanded consciousness that actually is not altered consciousness, it's an expanded consciousness that is experienced in our daily lives in total sobriety, can only be sustained if there are no conflicting stories, beliefs, and viewpoints. We cannot hold the two conflicting viewpoints at the same time. It seems very logical to me. Let's make an example. For instance, for someone to reconnect with the divine feminine and at the same time hold grudges against their own mother or other feminine aspects of life is shallow talk. Is shallow because it does not take into consideration the fact that the feminine energy is sacred all around, and not just in an idealized abstract form. We have been living as Westerners in our heads for long enough, and the results of that limited kind of existence of simply being on an awareness, knowledge level is showing up everywhere. Is showing up in the discrepancies in our very own lives. It's like we are continually kind of dyslexic and unable to live with the state of awareness that we may have contacted during a peak experience. The very best way to see those discrepancies, those contradictions, is by actually looking at our own lives. Our own lives are the most truthful expression of the beliefs that we hold in our consciousness. And it is important to be aware that there is a difference between the beliefs we would like to hold in our consciousness and the beliefs that we actually hold in our consciousness. Say, for instance, I fall sick and I wish to heal. And I start telling myself, yes, I want to heal, I'm ready to heal, and why isn't that healing happening? If that healing isn't happening, is oftentimes because we hold conflicting beliefs about our very own ability to heal. For instance, there may be a well-concealed belief about actually not deserving that healing, or a belief that such healing is impossible. So it's important to be honest with ourselves and gently look inside ourselves for all of these conflicting beliefs, and then gently, through also the plant medicine process, to integrate those beliefs. The lessons, I believe we come here with the hope of remembering, of learning, are very important. They are lessons about our own divinity, our own sacredness, our own lovingness. And these are very important lessons, but oftentimes they are also multi-layered. And so it's important to continue the journey with humility and patience. It takes us time also to remember to learn a lesson. I know for myself, I suffer from periodic episodes of amnesia, and that is a natural thing. It's a human thing. But with gentle perseverance, we find ourselves shift, oftentimes without even becoming aware of it. We can witness our very own shifts in our daily lives, in very simple gestures, in ways even surprise us. And it is with that perseverance and that patience that eventually these beautiful lessons end up blessing our lives with their truth and with the light. Blessings.